rooftop restaurant overlooked the city like a crown on a king's head. String lights hung between steel beams, and the skyline glittered behind us like a promise. I had borrowed my brother's suit jacket for this dinner. It smelled like his cologne, something expensive I could never afford. Camille sat across from me in a black dress that cost more than my laptop. She was laughing at something Lucas Crane had said. Lucas was the kind of man who wore confidence, like a second skin. He ran a venture capital firm downtown, the kind that funded apps you saw on billboards. Camille had arranged this dinner to introduce me to potential investors. I thought she believed in me. I thought tonight was my chance. Then I stood up to pitch my idea, and everything fell apart. My voice shook as I explained SkyPath, my logistics app that could revolutionize supply chain tracking. Lucas leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine. Camille's smile tightened. When I finished, the silence was thick enough to choke on. Then Lucas laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a full, gut-deep laugh. Camille joined him. My stomach dropped like I had stepped off the edge of the building. Lucas leaned forward, still grinning. Don't take it personally, man. It's just business. I sat back down, my face burning. The other investors at the table looked away, suddenly fascinated by their plates. Camille reached for her wine, her expression cold and distant. She did not look at me. The dinner continued around me like I had disappeared. Conversations flowed about market trends, valuations, exits. I was a ghost at my own table. When the check came, Lucas grabbed it with a flourish. My treat, he said, winking at Camille. She smiled at him, the kind of smile she used to give me. We rode home in silence. The elevator felt smaller than usual. Our apartment was on the 14th floor, and every second climbing up felt like a countdown. When we finally stepped inside, Camille threw her purse on the couch and turned to me. Her face was hard, her jaw set. Supporting fantasies, the word hit me like a slap. Camille, this isn't a fantasy. SkyPath is real. I just need time to... Time? She laughed bitterly. You've had 3 years. 3 years of late nights, maxed out credit cards, and nothing to show for it. That's not fair. What's not fair is watching you throw our future away on a joke. I stared at her. A joke? She looked me dead in the eye. Yes, Noah. A joke. I grabbed my coat. Where are you going? She asked. I did not answer. I just walked out and did not look back. I sat in my car outside our building for an hour, hands gripping the steering wheel. My phone buzzed with texts from Camille, but I did not read them. I just drove. I ended up at a diner near the highway, the kind that stays open all night for truckers and insomniacs. I ordered coffee and stared at the table. At the dinner, just before I pitched, a woman had slipped me her business card. She was older, maybe 50, with sharp eyes and silver hair pulled back tight. She had been sitting at the far end of the table, quiet, watching. While everyone else laughed, she had not. She had just looked at me, folded the card between 2 fingers, and handed it to me without a word. I pulled it from my pocket now. The card was simple, white with black lettering. Meredith Hale, founder, Hale Ventures. And below that, a phone number. Nothing else. I pulled out my phone and searched her name. My breath caught. Meredith Hale had funded some of the biggest tech companies in the last decade. She was known for finding founders no one else believed in and turning them into legends. She had been at that dinner, watching me, and she had given me her card. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put it back in my pocket and ordered another coffee. The next 3 months were the hardest of my life. I moved out of the apartment. Camille did not try to stop me. I slept in my car most nights, parked behind a gym where no one asked questions. I showered at truck stops and ate $1 menu meals. During the day, I coded in coffee shops that had free Wi-Fi. My laptop became my entire world. I rebuilt SkyPath from scratch. The original version had been clunky, too complicated. I stripped it down, made it faster, cleaner. I worked 16-hour days, my back aching from sleeping in the driver's seat, my eyes burning from screen glare. But I kept going. I had to. One morning, I woke up to find my laptop would not turn on. I pressed the power button over and over. Nothing. Panic clawed at my chest. I took it to a repair shop. The guy behind the counter opened it up, poked around, and shook his head. Hard drive's dead, man. Everything on here is gone. 3 months of work. Gone. I walked out of that shop and sat on the curb, staring at the cracked screen in my lap. For the first time since leaving Camille, I cried. I called Nate that night. Nate had been my college roommate, the kind of guy who knew more about servers and code than anyone I had ever met. He worked for a tech company now, made decent money, and had a one-bedroom apartment in a building with actual heat. Noah? His voice was surprised when he answered. Hey man, I need help. There was a pause. Then, where are you? I told him. He picked me up an hour later. Nate took one look at me and did not ask questions. He just drove me to his place, handed me a towel, and pointed to the shower. When I came out, there was a plate of food on the coffee table and a blanket on the couch. You can stay as long as you need, he said. Over the next 2 weeks, Nate helped me recover what I could from my crashed laptop. We salvaged about 40% of the code. The rest, I had to rebuild. He also gave me access to his server space, so I could run tests without crashing my system. One night, while I was coding, Nate called me over to his laptop. You need to see this. He pulled up a video. It was a podcast. And there, sitting across from the host, was Camille. Next to her was Lucas Crane. They were talking about innovation in logistics, and Camille was explaining an idea that sounded exactly like SkyPath. My idea. She's pitching your app, Nate said quietly. I watched the screen, my blood turning to ice. Lucas nodded along, smiling. It's a game changer, Camille said. We're really excited about where this is going. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking. 2 months later, SkyPath got its first client. It was a small delivery company in the suburbs, just 3 trucks and a warehouse. The owner, a guy named Omar, had found my website and reached out. He said he liked that I was honest about being new. Big companies don't care about guys like me, he said. But you're hungry. I respect that. I set up the system for him over a weekend. It was nerve-wracking. If this failed, I had nothing. The demo was scheduled for Monday morning. Omar and his 2 drivers gathered around a tablet in the warehouse. I pulled up the app, my heart pounding. Okay, I said. Your trucks are all connected now. You can see live locations, delivery times, and even fuel efficiency. Omar nodded, impressed. I clicked to the next screen. The app froze. I clicked again. Nothing. The screen went black. My stomach dropped. Give me 1 second, I said, trying to restart it. One of the drivers muttered something. Omar crossed his arms. I rebooted the tablet. The app came back up, but the data was wrong. The trucks were showing up in locations they had been hours ago. This is supposed to be live, right? Omar asked. I nodded, sweat dripping down my back. It is. I don't know what. The app crashed again. Omar sighed. Look, kid. I like you, but I need something that works. He walked away. I stood there, holding the dead tablet, feeling like I had just lost everything again. I sat on the curb outside Omar's warehouse, staring at the cracked pavement. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost did not answer. Hello? Noah. The voice was calm, steady, familiar. This is Meredith Hale. We met at the rooftop dinner. My heart skipped. I remember. I've been following your progress. I know what happened today. I froze. How do you? I make it my business to know. Listen. I'm in town. Meet me at the cafe on 5th and Main. 1 hour. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a moment, processing. Then I stood up and started walking. Meredith was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window with a cup of tea. She gestured to the seat across from her. I sat down. She studied me for a long moment. You look like hell, she said. I've been better. Good. That means you're still fighting. She slid a folder across the table. I opened it. Inside was a check for $50,000. My hands started shaking. I don't understand. I'm investing in you, she said simply. But there's one condition. I looked up. What? You keep your name off the company. For now. I frowned. Why? She leaned forward. Because you're not ready for the spotlight yet. You need time to build something real, something untouchable. And when you're ready, you'll step forward. Not before. I stared at the check. $50,000. It was more money than I had ever seen. She smiled. Because I've been where you are, and I know what you're capable of. Don't waste it. She stood up and walked out, leaving me alone with the check. I used Meredith's money to completely rebuild Skypath. But I did not just fix the bugs. I changed the entire direction. Logistics apps were crowded. Everyone was trying to do the same thing, but while researching, I stumbled onto something else. Cybersecurity gaps in supply chain software. Companies were being hacked, losing shipments, data breaches everywhere, and no one was solving it. I pivoted Skypath from a logistics app to a cybersecurity platform for supply chains. It was risky. It meant starting over again. But it felt right. Nate helped me build the new infrastructure. We worked day and night, testing, breaking, rebuilding. 3 months later, I submitted a proposal to a small government contract for securing delivery systems for federal shipments. It was a long shot. I did not expect anything. Then one morning, I got the email. Proposal approved. Contract awarded. I read it 3 times to make sure it was real. Nate screamed when I told him. We did it, man. We actually did it. I called Meredith. I got the government contract. There was a pause. Then she said, Good, now build quietly, then return with thunder. I smiled. Yes, ma'am. The government contract changed everything. Suddenly, Skypath was legitimate. We were not just some scrappy startup anymore. We had credentials, revenue, a reputation. I brought Nate on full-time as Chief Technology Officer. He quit his job without hesitation. I've been waiting for you to ask, he said. We rented a small office space, just 2 rooms above a print shop. It was not fancy, but it was ours. Meredith checked in every few weeks. She never micromanaged. She just asked the right questions. Are you building something people need, or something you want them to need? She would ask. It kept me grounded. One afternoon, she stopped by the office. She looked around, nodded approvingly. You're doing well, she said, but don't get comfortable. This is just the foundation. What's next? I asked. She looked me in the eye. Now, you build quietly. You grow slow. You make yourself untouchable. And when the time is right, you step into the light and show the world who you really are. But not yet. How will I know when? She smiled. You'll know. She left, and I stood there, staring out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, Camille was still telling people my idea was a joke. Somewhere, Lucas was still laughing. But not for much longer. 6 months later, Skypath had grown beyond what I ever imagined. We had 12 employees now. Real office space, downtown, with windows that faced the river. We were landing contracts with mid-sized corporations, and our name was starting to circulate in the right circles. One morning, our HR manager knocked on my door. Her name was Priya, sharp and no nonsense. "You need to see this," she said, handing me a tablet. It was a resume. I glanced at the name at the top and almost choked. Lucas Crane. "He applied?" I asked. Priya nodded. "Yesterday. He's looking for a senior strategy role." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Lucas Crane, the man who had laughed at me on that rooftop. The man who sat next to my wife while she mocked my dream. And now, he wanted to work for me. I started laughing. I could not help it. Priya looked confused. Should I reject him? "I want to meet with him personally." She raised an eyebrow but nodded. Understood. After she left, I sat there, holding his resume. The irony was almost too perfect. Lucas Crane wanted a job at the company he had once dismissed as a joke. I thought about rejecting him outright, but something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something else. Either way, I wanted to see his face when he realized who I was. I started digging into Lucas Crane. It did not take long to find cracks. Lucas was no longer the golden boy he pretended to be. His venture capital firm had taken a hit after 2 major investments went under. He was scrambling, looking for stable income. That is why he applied to Skypath. But there was something else. Something bigger. Nate was the one who found it. He was running a routine security check on our internal systems when he noticed something strange. Someone had been trying to access our employee database from an outside IP address. We traced it back. The attempts were coming from a firm called Apex Ventures. Camille's firm. Why would they be trying to access our employee data? Nate asked. I frowned. They're trying to poach our talent. It made sense. Camille knew Skypath was growing. She probably did not know I was behind it, but she knew the company was valuable. And if she could steal our best engineers, she could cripple us. What do we do? Nate asked. I thought for a moment. Let's keep watching. I want to know exactly what they're planning. Over the next 2 weeks, we monitored every attempt. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. Lucas was the one making the access requests. He was working with Camille. They were using her VC firm as a cover to steal from us. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. Lucas Crane was not just looking for a job. He was trying to infiltrate Skypath from the inside. I could not sleep that night. My mind kept turning over the same question. What else were they planning? The next morning, I went into the office early. Nate was already there. As usual, hunched over his laptop with a cold cup of coffee beside him. I found something, he said without looking up. He turned his screen toward me. It was a presentation deck, a pitch deck, my pitch deck, the one I had created 3 years ago for Skypath. But it had been updated, polished, professional, and at the bottom of every slide, there was a name. Camille Torres, Apex Ventures. Nate said quietly. She took your original concept, repackaged it, and she's been shopping it around to investors as her own. I scrolled through the slides. Every single idea was mine. The language was different, but the core concept was identical. My hands tightened into fists. How long has she been doing this? At least a year, Nate said. Maybe longer. I stared at the screen. My wife had not just mocked my dream. She had stolen it, and she had been profiting from it while I slept in my car and rebuilt everything from nothing. Every version, every email, every presentation she's given. I want a paper trail. Nate nodded. Already started. I looked at him. Good, because we're going to take everything from her. Over the next 2 weeks, Meredith, Nate, and I worked quietly behind the scenes. We gathered every piece of evidence we could find. Emails where Camille had pitched my idea to investors. presentation decks with my original language, even recorded interviews where she claimed the concept was hers. But we also found something else. Lucas had been funneling money from Apex Ventures into his personal accounts. Small amounts at first, but over time, it added up. He was embezzling, and Camille either did not know or did not care. "This is bigger than plagiarism," Meredith said one afternoon. "This is fraud." I nodded. "So, what do we do?" She smiled. "We give them exactly what they want. A stage." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Skypath is hosting its annual summit in 2 months," she said. "Invite Lucas to speak." "Why would I do that?" "Why would I do that?" "Because," she said, leaning forward, "the best way to expose a liar is to let them lie in front of everyone." I thought about it. Then I smiled. "I like it." Meredith stood. "Good. Then let's set the trap." Planning the summit took every ounce of focus I had. Skypath's annual event was supposed to be a celebration of our growth. Investors, clients, and industry leaders would be there. It was our chance to prove we had arrived, and I was going to use it to destroy Lucas Crane and Camille Torres. I personally approved Lucas as a keynote speaker. The invitation went out under the company's name, not mine. He did not know I was CEO. To him, Skypath was just another tech company. He accepted immediately. Priya handled the logistics. "He's excited," she said. "He thinks this is his comeback moment." "It will be," I said. "Just not the way he thinks." I also made sure the venue was perfect. I chose the same rooftop restaurant where Camille had humiliated me 3 years ago. The same string lights. The same skyline view. The same tables. When I told Meredith, she raised an eyebrow. "That's bold." "It's necessary," I said. She smiled. "Then do it right." The invitations went out. Lucas confirmed. Camille's firm was listed as a sponsor, so she would be there too. Everything was falling into place. One night, I stood on that rooftop alone, the city glittering below me. I remembered how small I had felt that night, how broken, how worthless. I whispered into the wind. Full circle. The week before the summit, I re-recorded my original pitch. The one I had given 3 years ago. Word for word. I stood in front of a camera in our office, wearing the same borrowed jacket, and delivered the same speech. But this time, my voice did not shake. This time, I believed every word. When I finished, Nate played it back. "This is perfect," he said. I nodded. "Leak it." "What?" "Send it to every tech blog, every journalist, every investor who's ever covered Skypath. I want this video everywhere." Nate hesitated. "That's going to raise questions." "Good," I said. "Let them ask." Within 24 hours, the video was everywhere. Tech blogs ran headlines like, "Skypath CEO's original pitch resurfaces. Was it stolen?" Investors started asking questions. The buzz was building. And Camille noticed. I got a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk." "Camille." I did not respond. 2 days later, she tried to cancel Lucas's appearance at the summit. She called the office, demanding to speak to whoever was in charge. Priya transferred the call to me. I did not answer. I just let it ring. The summit was 3 days away, and I was ready. The night before the summit, I could not sleep. I kept replaying everything in my mind. Every moment of doubt. Every time someone told me I was crazy. Every time Camille looked at me like I was nothing. I thought about the car I had slept in. The cold nights. The crashed laptop. The diner where Meredith had handed me a lifeline. It had all led to this. Nate knocked on my door around midnight. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah. Just thinking." He sat down. "You know, when you called me that night, I thought you were done. I thought you were going to give up." I almost did. But you didn't. He looked at me. That's the difference, man. You didn't quit. And tomorrow, everyone's going to see why. I smiled. Thanks, Nate. Don't thank me. Just don't mess up your speech. We both laughed. The next morning, I put on a suit. A real one this time. Not borrowed. Not cheap. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. 3 years ago, I had been broken. Now, I was whole. I grabbed my notes and headed to the rooftop. It was time. The rooftop was packed. Investors, journalists, tech leaders, all gathered under the string lights. The city stretched out behind us, glittering in the afternoon sun. I stood backstage, watching the crowd. Camille was near the front, talking to someone I did not recognize. She looked confident, polished, untouchable. Lucas was backstage too, going over his notes. He had not seen me yet. Meredith found me in the corner. "You ready?" she asked. I nodded. "More than I've ever been." "Good, because there's no going back after this." "I know." She squeezed my shoulder. "Then go show them who you are." The event began. Priya introduced the first speaker, then the second. The energy in the room was electric. Finally, it was time. Priya stepped up to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, Lucas Crane." The crowd applauded. Lucas stood, adjusted his tie, and walked toward the stage. But before he reached the microphone, I stepped out from behind the curtain. The applause faltered. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Camille's face went white. Lucas stopped mid-step, staring at me. I walked to the microphone, looked out at the crowd, and smiled. "Hi, everyone. My name is Noah Perry, and I'm the founder and CEO of Skypath." The room exploded in whispers. Lucas stood frozen on the stage. Camille's mouth hung open. The crowd was buzzing, confused, intrigued. I let the silence settle before I spoke again. 3 years ago, I stood on this very rooftop and pitched an idea. I believed in it with everything I had, but I was told it was a joke. I was laughed at, dismissed, humiliated. I looked directly at Camille. Her face had gone pale. The woman who told me my dream was worthless is sitting in this room right now, and the man who laughed at me is standing behind me. Lucas turned, his face red. I continued. "But here's the thing. While they were busy mocking me, I was building. While they were stealing my ideas and pitching them as their own, I was creating something real, something that works, something that matters." I pulled out a folder and held it up. This is a presentation deck. It was pitched by Apex Ventures over the last year. Every single idea in it is mine. Stolen, repackaged, sold. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Camille stood up, her voice shaking. "That's not true. You're lying." I pressed a button. The screen behind me lit up with side-by-side comparisons. My original pitch, her version, line by line, word by word. The evidence was undeniable. "And Lucas Crane," I said, turning to him, "has been funneling money from Apex Ventures into his personal accounts. Fraud. Embezzlement. We have the bank records." Lucas's face went from red to white. The room erupted. Security moved quickly. 2 men approached Lucas, who tried to argue, but his voice was drowned out by the crowd's murmurs. "This is insane," he shouted. "You can't." "I can," I said calmly. And I did. They escorted him off the stage. Camille was still standing, her hands shaking. She looked at me, her eyes filled with something between rage and desperation. "Noah, please. Let me explain." I shook my head. "There's nothing to explain. You made your choice 3 years ago." Meredith stepped forward from the crowd, her presence commanding immediate silence. She walked onto the stage and stood beside me. For those who don't know me, I'm Meredith Hale. I've been an investor in Skypath since the beginning, and I can confirm everything Noah just said. She looked at Camille. Apex Ventures will be investigated. And if you're smart, you'll step down before this gets worse. Camille's face crumbled. She looked around the room, but no one met her eyes. She grabbed her bag and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted for her, like she carried a disease. As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. "I did it for us," she said, her voice breaking. I looked at her, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just clarity. "You never believed in us, Camille. You only believed in what I could become for you." She left, without another word. The rest of the summit passed in a blur. People approached me. Investors shook my hand. Journalists asked for interviews, but I barely registered any of it. I just kept thinking about how far I had come. Meredith found me later, standing by the railing, looking out at the city. "You did it," she said. I nodded. "Yeah, I guess I did. How does it feel?" I thought about it. "Honestly, empty." She smiled. "That's normal. Revenge always is." "So what now?" She looked at me. "Now you build something bigger than revenge. You build a legacy." I liked the sound of that. Over the next few weeks, the fallout was swift. Lucas was formally charged with embezzlement. Apex Ventures shut down after investors pulled out. Camille resigned quietly and disappeared from the industry. Meredith reclaimed her seat on Skypath's board. The company continued to grow, but something had shifted in me. I did not want Skypath to just be about profits and growth. I wanted it to mean something. So, I started a program. A mentorship initiative for young entrepreneurs who had been told their ideas were not good enough. We called it Skyfire. And it became the thing I was most proud of. 6 months after the summit, Skyfire held its first pitch event. 20 young founders stood in front of a panel of investors, sharing their ideas. Some were polished, some were rough, but all of them had fire. I sat in the back, watching. One kid reminded me of myself. He was nervous, stumbling over his words, but his idea was solid. When he finished, the room was quiet. Then I stood up and started clapping. The rest of the room joined in. After the event, I pulled him aside. "You did great," I said. He looked at me, eyes wide. "Really? I thought I messed up." "You didn't. You showed up. That's the hardest part." He smiled, and I saw myself in him, that scared kid who just wanted someone to believe in him. "Keep going," I said. "Don't let anyone tell you your dream is a joke." He nodded. "I won't." I watched him leave, and I felt something I had not felt in years. Peace. Camille reached out one more time. It was an email, short and simple. "Can we talk? I owe you an apology." I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let her fade into the past where she belonged. But another part of me needed closure. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. She was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window. She looked different. Tired. Smaller somehow. I sat down across from her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Thank you for coming," she said finally. I nodded. "You said you owed me an apology." She looked down at her hands. "I was wrong. About everything. I should have believed in you. I should have supported you. Instead, I tore you down because I was scared." "Scared of what?" "That you'd succeed without me. That I'd be left behind." Her voice cracked. "So I tried to take what was yours and make it mine. I convinced myself I was helping. That I was just fixing things. But I was stealing, and I'm sorry." I looked at her, And for the first time, I saw her clearly. Not as the villain of my story, just as a person who made terrible choices. I appreciate the apology, I said, but it doesn't change what happened. I left the coffee shop and did not look back. Camille was part of my past, and I was finally okay with that. Skypath continued to grow. We landed contracts with major corporations. Our cybersecurity platform became an industry standard. But the thing I cared about most was Skyfire. We had funded 12 startups in the first year. 3 of them were already profitable. I spoke at universities, sharing my story. I told them about sleeping in my car, about losing everything, about the moment I almost gave up. But here's the thing, I would say. Your dream doesn't die because someone laughs at it. It only dies if you stop believing in it. The students would nod, scribbling notes, and I hoped at least one of them heard me. Nate became Chief Operating Officer. Meredith remained on the board, guiding us with her quiet wisdom. And I kept building. Not for revenge, not for validation, but because I finally understood what Meredith had told me all those years ago in that cafe. Build something that matters. Build something untouchable. Build a legacy. A year later, Skyfire held its second annual pitch event. This time, we had over 100 applicants. We could only accept 25. The room was packed with energy, young founders nervous and excited, just like I had been. One girl stood out. Her name was Keisha, and she was pitching a platform to help low-income families access affordable health care. Her voice shook as she spoke. She stumbled over a few words, but her passion was undeniable. When she finished, the room was silent. Then I stood up and clapped. The room erupted. After the event, I found her sitting outside, staring at the city. "You did amazing," I said, sitting beside her. She looked at me, eyes wide. "Really? I thought I messed up." I smiled. "You didn't. You reminded me of someone." "Who?" Me." She laughed. "That's a good thing. Right? The best." I handed her a folder. "This is seed funding. $50,000. Use it to build your platform. And don't let anyone tell you it's not good enough." She stared at the folder, tears filling her eyes. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just promise me you'll keep going. Even when it gets hard." She nodded. "I promise." I watched her walk away, clutching that folder like it was made of gold. And I realized something. This was my legacy. Not the company, not the money, but the people I helped along the way. 2 years after the summit, I returned to that rooftop one last time. It was early evening, and the city was glowing beneath a purple sky. The string lights swayed gently in the breeze. I stood at the railing, looking out at the skyline. This was where it had all started, where I had been humiliated, where I had felt worthless, but it was also where I had learned the most important lesson of my life. Your value is not determined by the people who doubt you. It's determined by the choices you make when everyone else walks away. I thought about Camille, about Lucas, about all the people who had laughed at me, and I realized I did not hate them anymore. I did not even think about them. They were just part of the story, a chapter I had closed. Meredith joined me at the railing. "You come here a lot," she said. I nodded. "It helps me remember." "Remember what?" "Where I started, and why I kept going." She smiled. "You've built something incredible, Noah." "We built something incredible," I corrected. She laughed. "Fair enough." We stood there in silence, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. What once got laughs, also once got laughs, I said quietly. Now builds futures. Meredith looked at me and smiled. "And that, Noah, is how you win." I nodded. Because she was right. This was not about revenge. It was not about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving myself right, and I had. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that your dreams are worth fighting for, please like and share this video. Comment below and tell me about a time someone doubted you and how you proved them wrong. Subscribe for more stories that remind us. The people who laugh at your beginning rarely make it to your ending.